There we go. Recording at an elevation of 6,674 feet. This is session number 16 of the Podcast Engineering Show. Here we go.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yes! This is I can't believe who we have in my studio today. This isn't even over the internet. This is awesome. The first person to ever come to Fractal Recording in person in the last 11 months. Well, because Fractal's in my house. Anyway, I have a really special guest today, but welcome everyone to the show. I'm Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for a living for Forbes and Dun & Bradstreet and select business authors. I work with a lot of business authors, actually. Every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. We really get down and dirty. We talk shop. All things audio engineering regarding podcasting. We don't get into marketing or listeners or download numbers. We don't care about that on this show. Right? Do you care? You care about that though, right, Drew?
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually. See, content is important. These people who say, just focus on content, don't worry about the sound. I actually agree. But you do have to focus on the sound. Anyway, I have a background in audio engineering in the music business, actually. And when I entered podcasting about 4 years ago, I noticed a huge lack of audio skills in podcasters. It's because they're not trained for that. Well, that's why I am doing the show, and that's why I set up the Podcast Engineering School, which is going to have our first course in the fall of this year. And Barry, are you going to be there with me at the Podcast Engineering School this fall, the fall of 2016?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. He's going to be there. What are people going to need to attend the Podcast Engineering School, Barry?
You're going to need a couple of horses or a couple of mules.
Who knew that horses and mules were germane to podcasting? This show's brought to you by the Podcast Engineering School. Check out the website to find out when that course is happening, podcastengineeringschool.com. And this show's brought to you by Fractal Recording. That's my production company, providing podcast production of the highest quality to companies, authors, and podcast networks. Fractalrecording.com. Obviously, this show is available everywhere and anywhere you listen to podcasts. And listen every week, and I promise you, this audio knowledge and experience will just seep into your brain, and you'll get a valuable education over time. Today, like I said, in studio, Drew Smith. Wait, where's my... Wait, hold on. Drew Smith in studio! That's right!
Oh, that's a warm welcome.
Oh, they love you, Drew!
You know, I'm a little tired from the hike up here to the mountaintop studio. It's 6,674 feet, but, you know, I'm in shape, and so I'm excited to be here.
That's true. And so, by the way, if you're listening, now you know that I live at 6,674 feet above sea level. Barry doesn't mind. Barry, does the altitude bother you?
No way. You crazy?
He's fine with it. He really doesn't mind at all. So, Drew Smith, you are a podcaster. You're a podcast producer.
Yeah.
You're a radio DJ.
That's right, yeah. Radio DJ and producer here in town at Cumulus Media. Gosh, I work on a ton of different shows. Oh, man, yeah.
Right? And you also host a podcast called Under 10 Fitness.
That's my main baby, yeah. I got that started 2 years ago, I want to say, and that's kind of what launched me into the radio business and stuff. But yeah, that's my baby.
Under 10 Fitness. Under TEN.
That's right.
Fitness.
Yeah, and that comes to like under 10 minutes. We break down fitness 10 minutes at a time. Yeah, that's kind of the shtick.
You make videos for people. They can watch the video and follow along.
Yep, you could do workout videos online. The podcast is the main thing, but then there's, I started the podcast and I was like, well, I guess I could do workouts too. So that kind of tacked on the end there, and now it's grown into this online business that supports local charities and tons of different stuff. It really grew, and it all started at a podcast.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you live in town here in Colorado Springs. You and I met because you started a Colorado Springs podcasters meetup group.
Yeah.
How many meetups did we have?
One.
I was there.
I just renewed it, and you got to pay to be on Meetup as an organizer, and so I just renewed, and I've had some people ask if we could put together another one, so there will be maybe one more. At least.
Yeah, come on. I just I met a few other people who are podcasters in town. In fact, there's a woman who I don't remember her name because I haven't met her yet. Apparently, she's the general manager of KRCC here in town.
Yeah.
She's speaking at Podcast Movement.
No way. I didn't know that.
I sent her 2 notes. I tweeted at her, and then I sent her an email through her website. I haven't heard anything back yet.
Oh, well, yeah, let's just go knock on the door.
Right, we can go there, right?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. You know what? Road trip.
Yeah.
Actually, what is it, 5 miles away, though? I'm just saying that we'll bring our microphones.
KRCC is really trying to step up their game in the podcasting world, and they're trying to compete with other, like NPR and Serial and those other types of podcasts.
Oh, okay.
They've really started up in the production value there.
Interesting. So do you think she might think that I'm trying to sell her my services or something? Maybe?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Or she's just super busy. Yeah.
There you go. So let's start with the speed round. See, Drew listens to the show, everybody. He came in today and we were already talking about certain things. You brought some equipment. And yeah, I want to mention before we get into the speed round that we're going to do the speed round. Then we're going to get into your workflow a little bit. But then we're going to actually try a couple different microphones live on the show. And you made a recording at home with 3 different microphones, and you're going to try and stump Chris Curran.
Yeah. So we have access at the radio station to, the RE20s that everybody loves. So I've got one of those in there and just a couple other consumer or, not the super high-end microphones. And we'll see if you can tell the difference on which is which in that aspect.
That's interesting. I'm ready for the challenge.
All right.
I really am. So speed round, let's go. So what are the shows that you produce and engineer? Is it just Under 10 Fitness?
That is my main one that I do myself from start to finish, but then also at the radio station, they're trying to get into podcasting as well. So there's a whole group of them that I do there. There's 4 different shows that I do the podcasts for.
Okay.
And then there's one more at a local radio station, just a doctor in town that interviews a bunch of different athletes. And so I help him, which I've recently bought one of the Zoom R16s for, because he wants to record off location, maybe at a coffee shop or just somewhere in town where we can just meet up and have something that's portable.
Interesting. So let's, real quick tangent, the Zoom R16, this is what you and I were looking at. You brought it. I'm looking at it right now. It's on the table right here. Mm-hmm. It has 8 XLR inputs. It's a USB audio interface.
Right.
With 8 XLR inputs, 8 faders. It records. It's not just an audio interface. It actually records the audio, right?
Yeah, uh-huh. And it's also a controller. So it can basically do everything you want it to. It could be your whole studio, really.
Right.
I mean, just no matter what you're doing, it's a great little piece of equipment. It's pretty cheap, and Zoom makes a good product.
Right? $400?
$400, yeah.
So by the way, if you're listening and you're not sure what a controller is, so the faders and some of the knobs on this Zoom R16, when you hook it up to your computer, if it's, and it should be compatible with almost all DAWs.
Right. Yeah, I don't have it hooked up as a controller.
Okay.
Right.
So when you hook it up as a controller, you can actually, for instance, let's say there's a voice on one of the tracks in your DAW and you want to ride the levels up and down a little, you can actually ride the physical fader on the controller, and on the screen, the little fader will move up and down. The beauty of that is you get to use your hands and you get to feel these fades instead of using a mouse or instead of drawing with that little line.
Right. Yeah. So it kind of speeds up the process, and it gives, people that hands-on feel that they want to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And for the old school guys who are used to faders, it really helps a lot. All right. So Under 10 Fitness, you record from scratch and you do everything for.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that in a second. By the way, what's the website?
Under10fitness.com.
There you go. Now, these other shows at Cumulus, other people record them and they just give you the audio?
Well, if I'm working that day, then I record them as well. And then just upload them into the little podcast app or program that they have. It's a little different than what we're used to.
Okay.
And so,
what is it? What do they use?
They use Stationcaster.
Okay.
And it's really typical in the radio industry.
Got it.
And it's cheap and easy for them to use. There's not a big learning curve with that one. But yeah, I get if I'm there in the studio, I record the audio and edit it slightly and upload it. So
Okay.
I've probably done over 500 different podcasts for them. And of that, I haven't lost a single one yet. So that's pretty good odds, yeah.
Yeah, that is good. All right, so those are the shows you work on. So now your workflow and hardware. Let's stick with Under 10 Fitness. We'll use that as your example because I know you have equipment at home. You have a setup at home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So take us through. You're about to record an episode. Where are you? What's your setup? how do you record it, and then how do you edit it, and how do you upload it? Give us the quick overview.
The quick thing, I've just got some basic dynamic microphones that I record into a audio interface that goes right into the computer into Audition. And from there, that's pretty much the workflow. It's not very complicated. I don't have any compressors or any other equipment that I use. And I do a light editing on it. I try to do everything in one run to maximize my time, so I'm not spending hours editing stuff.
Right.
And then I throw a little bit of music in. I put some bumper music in and out of the breaks. I throw a couple promotions in there. I record, mix it down, and it's ready to go. Pretty much. Pretty easy.
And right in Audition, you can make it an MP3, right?
Correct.
Yeah. You can output it as an MP3.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And then you tag it, obviously.
I do that stuff. Yeah, that fun stuff.
Upload it. Now, do you interview people? How do you bring people in?
Correct. So if I have an interview, actually, the radio station's pretty nice to me, and they let me record in their studios.
Okay.
So I rarely have people on that aren't in Colorado Springs with me. However, if I do, on a rare occasion, have somebody, I've interviewed people from Canada and North Carolina. That's I think that might be it. But anyways, they just call on my phone. And if I can, I get them on a landline. But if I can't, I get them on my cell phone. And actually, I put them in 1/4 inch to 3.5 millimeter right into my smartphone. And then I use one of the channels on my USB audio interface. And it's a 10-minute interview. And it's not horrible, but it works. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and I was actually on your show a while back. You had me on your show.
Yeah, and you came into the studio.
And I came to the radio station, to your studio, and we actually did 4, since each segment is like 10 minutes, we actually did 4 of them like in a row.
Right. Yeah, we just cranked them out, yeah.
Yeah. You do that with a lot of your guests?
I do, yeah, absolutely, because that keeps it under 10 minutes. We break it down 10 minutes, because otherwise it doesn't fit the format, yeah. So.
Right. And then you do, just to get, before I forget to mention this, your show, Under 10 Fitness, you actually format it in such a way, you give it over to another local radio station.
Right, exactly.
For a replay on a local radio station, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it's played on FM, and I've got to be careful with what I say because I can't overtly like advertise and other things like that. But yeah, the way it's formatted, I can double it up and put it in different places.
Right, so you take, a bunch of your 10-minute episodes and string them together?
Yeah, and what I like to do is when I have a guest in, I like to do 4 or 5 segments with them. And then they're kind of separate of each other. So if I wanted to, I could move them around, but basically I need an hour's worth to send over to the radio station. So I'll just do 5 segments and fill in a little bit of whatever I need to.
Right.
And that's easy. Yeah.
That's good. All right. So microphones, let's step through this a little bit. Microphones. Right. What are you using at home?
I use a dynamic microphone. I use the Sennheiser. What is it? The
E835?
The same one I'm using here in your studio.
Same one that I have.
And I also use a condenser microphone, the MXL 990.
Oh.
And that one actually isn't too bad. If you close all the windows and just make sure there's not a lot of reflective surfaces and put some studio foam behind it and stuff, yeah, you can get away with a really good audio from that one.
Right.
So that's what I use for microphones. I also have got an Electro Voice. It's a dynamic microphone. It's a EV Co9, EV Cobalt.
Right, and that's the one we're going to do a little sound checky later.
Yeah, so right now I'm on the Sennheiser, and then we'll switch over to the Cobalt. Maybe you'll be able to hear the difference.
Yes. This is the first time on this show we're actually going to hear differences in the mic. It's going to be a little bit later, though, but this is going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, perfect for your show and the audience. Yeah, you can hear what different microphones sound like if you're looking at a microphone.
Totally. All right, and then... So you have what's your audio interface? What are you using?
It is the PreSonus audio box. It's 2 channels. It costs about $100, and it's got some preamps on there, and that goes directly into the computer USB.
Okay.
And as far as recording, I record at 32-bit, 48 kilohertz. Right.
Into Audacity?
Audition.
Audition.
I've played with Audacity and a few other programs. When I first started, I used something called Mixcraft, which is a Microsoft program, and it's pretty cool. You can set different points to control the volume if you got a little rowdy on one of the parts. If you yipped and hollered or clapped or screamed or something, you can kind of adjust it in that. And the cool thing is you can upload video to that too. So Audition is the one that I've ultimately switched over to. It seems to be a pretty popular one. It's standard across all of radio stations. That's what they like.
Right. So 32-bit, really?
Yeah. That's what I record at. Now, the Zoom that we talked about earlier, it only records up to 24-bit.
Only.
Well, yeah. There's a big difference between, like 16-bit and 24-bit. There's a huge jump. And 24-bit's pretty good. You record at 3248? No,
2448.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah, 32 is awesome if you can do it.
That's not where the final product ends up. Like when I mix it down, it's not that big. But, if you've got the ability to record that big, might as well.
Yeah. And, it's funny, though. Some plugins, and I need a plugin expert on this show. So if you're listening, if you know any experts on plugins, not just one brand, I'm talking all plugins. Like what different kinds of plugins are there? Compatibility with Windows and Mac and all this stuff. I really want to know. But some plugins, they won't work on anything above 2448 or something. So I don't know if some plugins can handle 32-bit. I'm assuming it could because it probably internally it just drops it down to 24 and then processes it and whatever. But anyway, that's a question for the plugin expert.
Yeah, that's not me.
All right, so you get it into Audition. By the way, the mic pre's on your PreSonus audio box, pretty good?
Yeah, they're really good for what I'm using, and it's got phantom power, which can do that condenser mic, the MXL 990, which I use. So that's perfect for that. And, the dynamics don't need phantom power anyway, so...
Right.
So, yeah, it runs into there. Do you want to get into the editing process? Or you want
all right. So you got it in Audition.
Yeah.
Now, if you record an interview through your phone and you record them on two separate tracks?
Correct. Yeah, that's the cool thing about the audio box is that you can set different. Of course, it'll be mono, but I put myself on, one track and then the guest on another. And that way it just gives you control over cutting out any kind of audio if something happens weird, in my house, if somebody's mowing the lawn or anything like that. But
yeah,
that gives me control over that.
Yeah. So then it's in Audition, and now talk to me about editing. How crazy do you go?
Not crazy. One of the things that I'm really good at is splitting a track. So Control K, that's the shortcut there on Audition.
Split it. What does that mean?
So you can split the track, right? So you've got your whole track. You just pick a point and you split it. So then you can cut out that space in there.
Splicing,
split it.
Make a cut. Yeah,
make a cut.
Sure.
So that's what I would say is my specialty when it comes to editing. I can hit Control K pretty good. Light editing. I don't go overboard on it. And since I do have a time-sensitive show that needs to be 58 minutes and 30 seconds on the dot.
Okay.
If I'm sitting there cutting out all of my ums and so's and ahs and you knows, it shortens it, and then I've got to find a way to fill that. And I try to just do my best on not saying all of those crutch words, and I fail most of the time. Light editing, I come in and I put different music in, and I will add any kind of promos that I have. I got a couple sponsors, so I put their sponsors in the middle, and it's just kind of a whole flow. I hit record, and I don't stop hitting record until we're done.
Right. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hey, if you have some extra time, maybe you could tell some jokes.
Yeah. Fitness jokes, why did the hamburger go to the gym?
Why?
To get bigger buns. There's a stupid fitness joke for you.
I was going to say, the joke thing is rough. I'm not a funny guy, so I don't go near jokes. I don't try to be funny.
Yeah.
Because that always never works.
Nope, not big on the jokes, but we do have fun on the show. So we're talking about the editing process, and what I've done that's really helped me is because it's really hard to start over every time. So I've got a folder it's called my podcast folder, and it's everything I need. It's all of my music. It's any intros or outros that I have that are already pre-recorded and pre-mixed, so I don't have to do that every single time. All I do on the music is fade it in and out. and I just pop in different music bumpers when I need them. So it's a pretty simple process as far as adding in extra music in audio.
How do you listen? Headphones?
I do listen to headphones while I'm recording, and then when I'm mixing it down, I listen to it on some powered monitors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Which ones?
they're yellow.
They're yellow. Okay.
Yeah.
The yellow brand. Yeah. No. KRKs? I don't know.
I'm not. They might be KRKs. Actually, yeah. That's their brand, isn't it? Yeah. So I think they are
yellow.
KRKs.
Okay.
And they're nothing fancy. But what I do with those is I turn it really low. When I'm editing, if it sounds good really low, then it should sound pretty decent if I turn it up a little bit. Now, the one thing, that's especially when I'm mixing music. If I'm mixing my voice over music, I turn it way down, so if I can still hear myself over the music, it usually ends up in a pretty good mix.
Got it.
But then, of course, you got to crank it up just in case there's any weird ambient noises that you want to make sure you can pick out and cut out if you need to.
Right. Oh, that's cool. So final processing, mastering. Do you do anything? When it's all done, said and done, do you add any mastering, compression, limiting, anything?
Not until I started listening to you.
Oh.
Of course. After I'm listening to the engineering show, the podcast engineering show, I started doing that. And now I've played with a gate. And with the gate, I cut off my voice. So I haven't found the right settings for that.
Got it.
So it sounds like...
Yeah.
Exactly. But now I do it's a compressor. It's a 30 band compressor. Does that sound right?
3 or 4 band, probably.
3 or 4 band, multi-band compressor.
Yeah, multi-band.
That's what it's called. So it's just a preset, and it's called the broadcast one. So I do the multi-band compressor on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
And
Some of
then
them, yep.
I do, and I heard somebody else just mention that on the show.
Yeah.
And then I add a limiter. But other than that, pretty simple. And in Audition, it's really cool because once you mix the file down to get ready to edit it, you can go in and just highlight certain segments of your audio and adjust the volume manually.
Oh.
So you can get everything to a good volume. Because what happens when you add those compressors, it changes everything. So if you've got a piece of audio that's really, really quiet and you do that compression to everything goes up and it doesn't affect that little audio that much.
Right. Yeah, interesting you bring that up. I haven't mentioned this on the show yet, but I sometimes do that. So I actually usually compress voices either to tape or when I'm mixing. So by the time it gets to a mixed down stereo file, which is like almost the final one, pretty much all the voices have been compressed. So there's never anything that's really low, but sometimes there is. Even using Auphonic sometimes because sometimes I'll have someone who's recording in an echoey room with several people on one mic, and it's like, you know what, Auphonic does a much better job and much quicker than I could with that. But even with that, sometimes there's a really low part. So just what you said, you can go through and raise them up a little. I've realized too that you can't raise them up too much though.
Right, because there's a noise floor that comes up with that, right?
Right. And not only that, the EQ of the voice is different when the mic picks it up really low. So it's almost like if someone was screaming, and then someone was whispering, if they're the same volume, it's weird. It's not natural.
Right, yeah.
So it's almost like the low things, they have to be at least a little low.
Yeah.
To make it sound natural, but they can't be too low.
You want a little bit of dynamic range in there, but you don't want your listener to be riding that volume knob.
Oh, that's right.
And usually that's where your best content is, where you're talking really quiet. That's where you give away all the good secrets.
That's right. Oh, my God. All the gold nuggets.
Uh-huh. But it's come a long way. When I first started recording, I just got it's a consumer USB microphone. It was $20 or $30. It
Wow.
picked up every single sound in the room.
Oh.
And it was just pretty bad and poor quality.
Huh.
And so, yeah, I got away from that pretty quickly, invested a little bit of money. It's been working out pretty good for me.
Right? Yeah. You ever record anything that ends up sounding pretty bad that you got to work on and doctor?
Yeah, but it's usually not because of a volume problem or something like that. It's usually some kind of wire where there's like a digital click or hiss or hum. And I had that problem when I started using a preamp. and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I got a lot of ground loop in the audio, and you know that I don't know if it's described as a 60 cycle hum. Does that sound right?
Something like that little bzzz.
Yeah, I just got a lot of that. So I just eventually went away with any type of amp.
Yeah, so it probably wasn't the preamp itself. It was probably the power to the preamp. So that's one thing. If you have a power strip and you have some equipment plugged into the same power strip.
Yeah.
And then you have them connected with audio wires. Sometimes, I don't know what it is, I'm not an electrician, but sometimes just the way it's connected, it'll hum.
Yeah.
That's why the ground lifts are really handy in a studio. Like every studio, you need to have several ground lifts ready to go. And a ground lift is just when something has 3 prongs, it's a little adapter you put on it, so it makes it 2-prong.
Oh, no way.
It removes the ground connection.
Oh, I've seen those adapters. I've seen them go both ways, whether you want to go get a ground wire or go to 2-prong. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's if you go from the 3-prong to the 2-prong using they call it a ground lift because it lifts the ground. It disconnects the ground. That, in fact, my main PC, my main recording PC, that one right there, that Asus, if it does not have a ground lift on it, it just makes this nasty sound. But you put a ground lift on, quiet as anything.
Yeah, and it could come down to one of those little things that you just have to keep looking for. Where is the problem coming from and how can I fix it? Oh, and one other problem that I had with audio was recording into, what's the free Audacity. And everything sounded fine. I was monitoring the audio, but then when I listened to the final wave that came out of it, it was overmodulated and it was just... I couldn't use it. It was unusable, and it was the whole entire file. So I think it had to do with the computer. The computer that we were using wasn't fast enough or something.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but it was a good interview with somebody from the Air Force Academy here doing some promoting and stuff. And yeah,
do you run a backup recorder?
I will now.
Oh, okay.
And in that case, I just didn't even think about it. But yeah, I got burned on that one, and so now I'm going to run a backup recorder. And with this Zoom, what I'm going to do is run something into my phone, just something from 1/4 inch to 3.5 millimeter, just to have a backup.
Right.
Yeah, and just capture the audio that way.
Yeah. So my main recorder is in the big computer. Well, it's actually a laptop, but it's souped up. It's like the strongest laptop ever created by man, probably. Well, maybe not, but
is that right, Barry?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was almost late on the trigger. But then I have my backup right here. This is Sony M10. So out of my board, I send a lot of different audio to my computer in different ways. Actually multi-track. I can send 8 signals out to my computer, record 8 tracks separately. But there's another stereo output of my mixing board, which I run right to the digital recorder. So that records stereo everything.
Nice.
So it mixes everything together. So it's a backup, but it's all mixed together. But it's just,
right. Yeah. See, because I would have taken that over anything else, even if I didn't have all the separate tracks. If I had just one that wasn't modulated, that sounded good,
right,
I would have taken that. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And if you record on your backup, everything's all mixed together.
Right.
You can't unmix it, obviously, but you can use something like Auphonic. If one voice is lower than the other, you can put it through Auphonic. It'll even out the voices with the adaptive leveler.
Yeah.
And I think there's other programs that do that too. I think there's one called Levelator. I'm not sure.
There's I don't know if it's a plugin. It's just a built-in preset on Audition. It's called the Compander. And if you run that, it levels everything out. It brings the highs down and the lows up.
Wow.
Yeah.
It still sounds good?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't do it much, but it helps bring everything closer.
Got it.
Yeah, closer to each other, one level. Mm-hmm.
One thing I'm finding with Auphonic, because I'm still messing with it. You know what I mean? It's a tool that I think is pretty cool. It's done some amazing things for me already. However, a lot of times the output, the way it sounds, I mean, the level might be okay, but just the way it sounds. And I think it has to do, I'm still researching this, but I think it has to do with the hum removal or the whatever they call it. Hum and noise removal or something.
Yeah.
And there's a filtering checkbox too. So filtering is one thing. Filter means roll off the low end and roll off the high end. Well, mostly the low end. Because sometimes the low end, if it gets too big, it makes it muddy. But anyway, there's also the noise and hum removal. And I've tried it without those two, and it sounds much better. So I don't know why, though, one of those two is making it sound like brittle and a little bit, I don't know how to say it, just a little more annoying, maybe.
Not to your ear. You're not liking what you're hearing.
Yeah, it's just not like smooth and rich. It just becomes brittle and like.
Yeah, I've never tried Auphonic.
It's a slight thing. I mean, most people would probably hear it and they don't even know, but I definitely hear something. There's something there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like when I chose. I'm using Cast to connect with people over the internet and record them. There's also Zencastr, which a lot of people use, but something about it just doesn't sound right to me. I don't know. They do that ducking thing. I don't know what's going on, but it's an easy decision for me. I just hear the difference. I don't know. So what else? Anything else notable when you're recording episodes and doing your files? Oh, do you the final output? Do you make it a certain volume level, like a RMS value or LUFS, loudness standard?
No, and I thought I knew, what I needed to know when it came to audio with decibels, and now there's LUFS. I'm like, what's going on here, guys? I was happy at my, getting the audio between like -3 and -6, and now there's LUFS involved. I don't. Yeah. So no, I don't. Yeah. I want it between -6 and -3 as far as the final limiter that I put on it or anything.
Okay. Yeah, LUFS is a loudness standard. It's a newer thing. Well, last few years. It's actually been around for many years, I think.
And it's more precise. Is that what I understand?
Well, it measures the relative loudness levels. So first you have the absolute level, which is the waveform. Then you have the RMS level, which is the average. The RMS level is sort of like the average loudness. RMS is almost like LUFS. They're very similar. But LUFS is a little more deeper, I guess. More accurate in terms of overall loudness.
Right.
Because everything is averaged anyway, right? Sometimes if you're talking real loud on the podcast, it's fine, but then you talk a little low, and it's like, well, it averages those two loudnesses, right? To come up with an overall loudness level for the entire file.
All right.
So you could you could whisper the whole episode and then play like a loud heavy metal song for like 30 seconds and then go back to whispering, and it'll literally bring up all the whispering to normal level, and when that heavy metal song comes on, it'll rip the top of your head off.
All right.
Because it's an average. It's interesting.
Got it.
So let's get these mics going. So what we're going to do now is you brought another microphone. You actually brought two microphones, but one of your mics happens to be the same one that I have.
Yeah.
Which is a Sennheiser E835, which, if you remember, is the one I chose from Guitar Center years ago when I went in there with my digital recorder and I tried an SM58, this Sennheiser, and I tried like 3 or 4 others. And to my ear, the Sennheiser E835 sounded the best, so that's what I bought. And the other one you have is the EV.
It's a Cobalt Co9.
Cobalt Co9. They're both handheld mics.
Yep. Both dynamic.
They're both dynamic.
They're both about the same price.
Both about the same price, and they're both cardioid pattern too.
Yep.
Which is pretty standard for a handheld mic. So, right, you've been speaking into the Sennheiser this whole time.
Correct.
So why don't we just go ahead and switch it real quick?
Switch them out? All right.
All right. Oh, it's a little snug. Firm. All right. Oh, you want to put the pop filter on there too? We're like scientists here. All right, let's hear it. Let's hear if the levels are the same.
And we're back now on the Cobalt. If it's sounding any different, it feels like it sounds pretty similar. However, I do like this microphone in its own way. I like the Sennheiser as well, but this one, it's a little brighter. I can hear my voice. It's not as deep. It feels a little bit brighter to me as far as sound, so that's why I ended up choosing this mic.
Right. Yeah, actually, I'm hearing a lack of low end, a little bit. The E835 seemed a little more full.
Okay.
A little more full, which would explain why you think this one is a little brighter, because it's a little more skewed toward the mid and high frequencies. Yeah.
Well, I do like it. I like the way it sounds. So I have a co-host, my fiance Brittany, and when she uses the Cobalt, it just sounds a little bit better on a female's voice.
Nice.
So that's when I will switch over to using a condenser microphone, which I have, which is that MXL 990.
Right.
And, dynamic microphones seem to be the standard when it comes to podcasting. But, yeah, I mean, there's some condensers out there, and if you use them right, you can get a pretty good sound out of them. And obviously, they pick up a lot more range. So you got to be careful.
Yes. Got to be careful.
Yeah.
So let's have you say the same line with this mic, then we'll switch them back, and you say the same line again.
All right.
What should you say? Have any ideas? A question for Barry, maybe? Barry, what?
That's a tongue twister right there.
Oh, jeez. Sorry. I like playing Barry clips.
Barry, what is your favorite hike in Colorado Springs? And have you ever hiked to the Mountaintop Studio here, the Podcast Engineering School, which is 6,674 feet?
That's frightening.
I'm gonna interrupt the audio test with a Barry. Have you remember Ralph Rivera, his show Web Search Social podcast? I don't know if you ever heard that show, Web Search Social, with Ralph and Carolyn Rivera, husband and wife from New Jersey. Did you ever see? I think you just went to their website, Barry, and you saw a picture of Ralph. What did the picture of Ralph look like?
Something from out of ancient times. Big mouth. Lot of teeth.
Oh, I always get Ralph with that one.
All right, so here we go. Something from out of ancient times. Big mouth, lot of teeth. That's my sentence that I'm going to say.
Perfect. Let's switch them back. All right, we're back with the Sennheiser. What's your sentence?
Something from out of ancient times. Big mouth, lot of teeth.
Big mouth.
Big mouth. Something from out of ancient times. Big mouth, lot of teeth.
Something from out of ancient times. Big mouth. Lot of teeth.
I didn't pause right either, but,
you can't touch Barry.
No, we can't all be Barry.
You just can't. Barry, do you, Barry, you think that both of these microphones are good microphones, right?
And scientific report from California was saying the same thing.
Okay. The
kind of spoke around that. And then when you're ready, I've also got another audio clip of 3 different microphones that I tested.
Yes.
We'll see if we can pick out which one is which.
We're doing it.
We're doing it?
We're
All
ready.
right, here you go. Let me...
So just so you for you listening, Drew, you at home, you made this piece of audio at home with 3 different mics. He's here today in Fractal Recording with me. We're playing this sound out of your phone.
Right.
And it's plugged right into my mixing board here.
Yes. Now, do you want to know which 3 microphones I used and see if you can pick out which one is which?
Perfect.
Okay, so I used one that I'm using again today, the Sennheiser E835.
Okay.
I also used a RE Electro Voice. Excuse me, did I say that right? An Electro Voice RE20.
Yep.
And then I also used my MXL 990.
Oh, the condenser.
The condenser. Yep.
Ah.
And let's see if you can pick out which one is which.
All right, let's make sure the level's good first, too. Yeah, go ahead.
If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick? If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick? If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick?
Wow.
So you've got 3 choices here, 3 different clips. And you've got the MXL 990, the condenser, you've got the Sennheiser E385, and the Electro Voice RE20.
Right. Yeah. Sennheiser's the E835.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's hear it one more time. Hit it again.
If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick? If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick? If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick?
All right. It's kind of going to be a guess. It's an educated guess, but I'm going to guess, and you know which they are, obviously.
Yes, I do, yeah.
All right. I'm going to say the first one is the condenser. the 990. I'm going to say the second one is the Sennheiser, and I'm going to say the third one is the RE20. And I'm wrong, right?
Absolutely right.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Good job. Where's your clapping people? Woo!
Oh. Where are they? Dang it. Here they are. Yes, that's for me this time.
Give a round of applause to Chris.
Love it.
And that's why you're the audio engineering show, man.
Well, I mean, I wasn't so confident, but I've never heard those three mics back to back. I've never heard the 990.
And it was a little brighter.
It was, and the background noise was what gave it away.
Ah.
I heard the room.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. That's how I knew. That's the condenser because you could hear.
Now, so in your opinion, which one sounds the best?
Well, they're all different.
Okay.
They're all different. Well, the RE20 has that really low full sound.
Yeah.
Which is why radio people use it all the time. They love it, yeah. So that's good. But they're all different. And it's interesting. We've talked about on the show before that different mics fit different people differently. Your voice.
Yeah. For some reason, when I use the RE20 or the Sennheiser, I just feel like I've got marbles in my mouth. And when I listen to myself, I'm like, spit out those marbles, Drew. What are you doing?
So you like the condenser?
I do like the condenser, but it comes with its own challenges.
Yeah.
You know? And it hears me with my lip smacking and every little sound that I make. And so do I want to deal with the marbles in my mouth or do I want to deal with the lip smacking? Which one, you know?
That's interesting. And I think most podcasters obviously get a dynamic mic, cardioid dynamic, just to keep out all the noise. I mean, it's just very practical.
Yeah, you don't have to set up. You don't have to check your volume or levels and everything surrounding every time. You just kind of plug and play.
Yeah, yeah. But if you have a quiet studio, then you can use a condenser. I have a real nice condenser. It's a CV12. It's a knockoff of a C12, but it's called a CV12, and it's made by Aventone, I think. Who knows who they are? But it's nice.
Have they gone out of business since? I've never heard of them either. Yeah.
I mean, really, I don't know. But hey, the mic sounds really good.
Yeah.
And I plugged it into my setup, and it sounds way better than the one I'm on now. I'm on a Shure SM7B right now.
Another popular one in the radio station. We've got tons of those.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going through obviously my really nice mic pre setup though, so that kind of gives it the sound I have. It's a little unfair advantage because because I spent a lot of money on a really high end piece of gear.
Yeah, one of the things that I did with the MXL, the condenser mic, is it's on its stand and it's got its shock mount, and I've put foam all around it. So the foam just absorbs any of that extra sound. So hopefully it doesn't bounce and reflect off the walls as much. And it's helped.
Interesting.
And I even put a little hat on top of it. So it's my mic man.
Oh.
And it's pretty sweet. Yeah.
How far is the foam from the actual mic?
It's pretty close, within inches. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's like surrounding the mic.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've seen those. They call them like pop filters or not. They call them diffusers, or I forget what they call them.
Something like that, yeah, but they wrap around the microphone, but that's not what I have. Mine is totally homemade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing about that, though, is I mean, if it's for voiceovers, that's one thing, but literally, if you have this thing around the mic, it's almost like you're putting your head into a box to talk into a mic. You can't see anything.
Well, and the problem is if you're doing any type of podcasting or you've got to look at notes, that's impossible. You can't do that.
Yeah. You can't. So I always looked at that and I was like, well, that's for voiceovers, I guess. People who are just, reading a 30-second voiceover and they're doing it, reading it maybe 5 times and they're going to be in the studio for a total of 8 minutes. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know I couldn't remember something, even if it was only 30 seconds. We're talking 5 or 6 sentences worth of words. Yeah, it's hard to remember that stuff.
You can't read because
where do you put your paper?
Yeah, where do you put the paper? Peter Piper picked the paper. Where do you put the paper? Wow. So this has been great. So any other little tidbits you can share with us about your production? By the way, you've never had formal training as an audio guy, right?
Well, there's a little bit. I mean, I've got a degree in radio broadcasting and radio and TV broadcasting, but they focus on kind of the whole picture. So you get one class in audio, and they teach you the very minimum.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just it's
Basics.
everything. Yeah, it's basics.
Cool.
So no, not really. I just kind of played with it. I would say find the program that works for you, whichever one that you want to use, because that is the most time consuming and the most frustrating part that I've ever found was the editing process. So whatever works for you, that's the good one. I personally like Audition. And as a student, they actually have a pretty good deal. If you're a student or a teacher, they hook you up. So it's a monthly subscription thing, but it's really cheap. And you get everything else. Photoshop, you get Premiere. Because when you get into podcasting, you also ought to turn into like a marketer, a producer,
right.
Designer, all of this different hats that you've got to wear when it comes to that. Right. But yeah, I would just invest a little bit of time on learning your program, whichever you're going to use to edit on.
Right. Yeah, because that's very handy. So I want a little live thing we're going to do here. The way you've been you talked for about a minute just there. You've been talking a little to the side of the mic, and you haven't been talking right into the mic. So what I want you to do now is move the mic, actually angle it a little more towards that way, right towards your mouth. Yeah, a little, tiny bit more. That's it. Yeah, now talk right into the mic.
Well, I don't have anything to say now.
So Audacity and Audition are the only two programs you've used?
I've used Mixcraft, and that's and I played with the it's the standard for most recording studios now.
Pro Tools?
Yeah, Pro Tools. So I've dabbled a little bit in all of them, but not heavily.
Okay. So now if you're a listener, rewind, and you just talked for about 20 seconds right there, right into the mic. So actually, if you go back like a minute, you can hear Drew talk a little to the side of the mic, and then after I mention it, he's going to talk right into it. Listen to the difference. Big difference in presence.
And the reason I talk by it is because I'm a heavy breather.
Oh, okay.
And I'll breathe into the mic, and that's one thing that I found a little trick for me when I'm recording in the same exact mic at home.
Uh-huh.
I just talk a little bit to the side because otherwise I'm really breathy and...
Really?
Yeah, and that's... one of my, but you probably do want to talk right into it because that's where the pattern is picking me up, right?
Yeah. Well, technically speaking, if you always talk the same way, like if you talk to the side a little more, that's okay. And if you talk right into it, that's okay. But if you go from one to the other, there's going to be a noticeable difference in the actual sound quality. When you speak right into a mic, it really gets all the presence, all the mid-range and the 3 and 4K and the sibilance, that kind of thing. When you talk a little off axis, it's more bassy, it's a little more dull.
So maybe that could be something that I should work on and test with it, because I do need to learn the mic techniques too, because then when I'm speaking right into it, I hear the S's and the P's and everything is a little more
right.
Everything's more present. Absolutely. Yeah. And with the RE20s, they're made for that, like the studio one. So when I'm in the studio and I'm recording or doing something at the station, if you talk past those a little bit, it actually does pretty well.
Got it. It's interesting what equipment they have in the studio. Do you know like what kind of mic pre's and compressors and what kind of limiters they use? That might be a little homework for you, Drew.
Yeah, maybe I should go check it out. I know there's a bunch of knobs like around my knee area, so just don't touch those things.
Right? Because there's definitely a mic pre or an EQ, compression, whatever.
Oh, all of that stuff, yeah.
So that'd be interesting to know. The other thing is the final signal of the radio station goes through a final processing limiter, whatever that is.
Absolutely. A final compressor and limiter and everything. So everything comes out just in one solid block.
Right. But the thing is, even if we knew what piece of equipment that was, we wouldn't know what it was because it's probably costs like $25,000.
I actually think that there's an intern in a shack behind the radio station that's just riding a knob, like turning it up and down every single time. So that's probably what it is.
Right. Well, this has been great. Drew Smith, host of Under 10 Fitness, and your website is under10fitness.com, under10fitness.com. I don't know why I always feel the need to say that it's 10 spelled out instead of the number.
Every time I tell it to somebody, I see them write it down and they just spell out or write the number.
Right.
So yeah, I got to spell it out too.
Right.
But yeah, thank you for having me on. Awesome show. This is the only show like it. I did a search in iTunes and yours is the only one that came up as far as engineering.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more technical stuff. So And it's funny because I sometimes post on Facebook these episodes, and even like my mom was like, "Oh, I heard your show," because I do the Mystic Show as well. And I also co-host 2 shows with Mike Michalowicz. But on this show, I had Mike McCallan as a guest. And my mom was like, "Oh, I heard your show with Mike." And I said, "Michalowicz?" She said, "Yeah, and it was great." And I said, "Oh, yeah, the Profit First podcast, right?" She's like, No, it was the engineering one." I'm like, why is my mom listening to the podcast engineering show?
Maybe she's found a hole in the market and she wants to get out there and do podcasts. Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, I put you on my iPad. It sounds like you're in the room with me." Moms are awesome.
Well, thanks again.
Yeah. And what else? Where else can people go to find you, Drew?
On Twitter at Under 10 Fitness.
Nice.
Instagram as well. All the same at Under TEN Fitness. Yeah. Tons of great content as far as working out. If you're wanting to learn just more about fitness, tons of no gimmicks, no tricks, just pure fitness. I interview lots of doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, things like that.
Right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So see, the podcast engineering show, if you listen to it every week, your brain gets dripped on with this knowledge and experience. If you listen to Drew's show every week, you'll become more healthy.
You just sweat. When you listen to the show, you just burn calories just by listening.
You probably have to compress your show a little more because people are either running or jogging or yelling or screaming.
I haven't thought of that. I need to. Yeah.
There you go. Good. So this has been great. Thank you, Drew Smith, and thank you for listening. This has been great, and we'll close out with our song, Distance Between 2 Points. Again, Podcast Engineering School is our website. You can go there. We're planning for the fall of 2016. I'm looking forward to Podcast Movement. Oh no. This should be out before then. It's so weird being ahead episodes because I don't know when this is coming out, and I don't know what to promote. But anyway, thanks for listening. Have a great day. Have a great week. And as always, you know the drill. Drew, you know.
Sound great.
Dude!
Walk away from me where you can't play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control where it's quite a feeling easy here. They're floating, drifting down now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react so angry. You change your attitude where you say I just don't get it now. You say your eyes so far away now. Gave up on me where some chance you gave me gave away. You say I wouldn't understand now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah, I say now it's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react so angry. I want you to know you will always be true. I've gone over all we've been through. Doesn't seem that long a time now. Things we did still hold their meaning. And does it mean it's still the same? You're pushing me away. You work your theories now where you're getting worked up on your now. You work your way around somehow now. And yes, it hurts me now where that you don't talk to me now. Now that these words have split apart now. You tell me that you're back.